We got our best indication yet that Caitlin Clark is on her way back toward a return for the Indiana Fever. Stephanie White did talk about Caitlin Clark, and I thought the comments were fairly telling. Here's what she had to say.
Caitlin, able to go through your little walkthrough or whatever you normally do, and what do you want to see ultimately to get comfort whenever the time comes?
What if I told you the latest update on Caitlin Clark's injury wasn't really a medical report at all? What if it was a coded message, a calculated move in a high-stakes game being played behind closed doors between the Indiana Fever, desperate TV executives, and a league office on the verge of full-blown panic? Because the story they're telling you in press conferences is nothing compared to the truth bubbling just beneath the surface.
We went through our walkthrough yesterday. Today it was very short, prior to game time. But she went through it yesterday, and I want to see her in practice. Live in practice. Want to see her continue to work to not just build endurance, but to be able to handle contact 94 feet as it's going to be in game. And to be able to do that and sustain from an endurance standpoint, and that's going to take multiple practices to make sure that there's no regression. And as most of us know, when we get fatigued, we look different, and see how she plays through fatigue.
When Clark first went down, the official line was cautious but calm. The team talked about day-to-day evaluations and managing the injury carefully. But behind the scenes, the whispers told a different story. This wasn't a minor tweak. It was a nagging, unpredictable groin injury, the kind that can linger for months and derail careers. The initial optimism was a front, designed to keep ticket holders from panicking and to stop the media from declaring the season a total loss before it was even halfway over.
You see Caitlin Clark, this video captured by Chloe Peterson at Shoot-Around. You can see Caitlin doing some work right there, just, warm-up work, back and forth on the court, but nonetheless on a basketball court. It's been a long time since we've seen Caitlin Clark on a basketball court. Certainly a long time since we've seen Caitlin Clark play basketball.
On the court, the fallout was immediate and brutal. The Indiana Fever, a team meticulously built around Clark's once-in-a-generation talent, completely imploded. Their offense, once a thrilling spectacle of long-range bombs and dazzling assists, became slow, predictable, and painful to watch. They weren't just losing games, they were getting blown out, looking more like a G League team than a professional franchise. The lifeblood of the team was gone, and everyone could see the ugly truth.
Because if you look at the Fever injury list, it's just wild to see. It's like the Star Wars scroll at the end of one of those movies. It's just a endless list of players who have been out, back out of the lineup again, and really just a lineup that you could build if you were the Indiana Fever. You could roll out there if you were experimenting, depending on the situation and the nature of the game.
Then the video dropped. A short, grainy clip from a closed practice showing Caitlin Clark jogging, taking light jumpers, and passing the ball. It wasn't an official team release. It looked almost like a leak, but it did exactly what it was meant to do. It broke the internet. Suddenly, fans were buzzing with hope, and social media exploded. This wasn't just a practice clip. It was a signal that the franchise player was on her way back, and it sent a shockwave across the entire league.
And there was a little bit more footage here. And you see Caitlin involved on the floor yet again, even handling the ball, working with her teammates. I mean, that's an important sign there to see her working with.
But sources from inside the league suggest this comeback isn't just being driven by the team. There's a secret pressure campaign happening, led by the WNBA league office and their broadcast partners. They've seen the ratings plummet without Clark. They know the casual fans, the millions she brought to the sport, are tuning out. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert needs her golden goose back on the floor to save the playoff viewership numbers, and that pressure is trickling down to the Fever's front office.
I noticed when you're asking about Caitlin a lot, you bring up other rookies as well.
No league's ever about one player. That player could get hurt or whatever. So I think it's just to give recognition that in sports, people watch for compelling content and rivalries, and you can't do that alone as one person.
This puts everyone in an impossible position, turning Clark's return into a career-altering gamble. On one hand, you have the dream scenario. She comes back, single-handedly drags the Fever into the playoffs, and creates a legendary comeback story. But on the other, there's the nightmare. A re-injury could be catastrophic, potentially impacting her for years to come. Is a slim chance at a first-round playoff exit really worth risking the future of a billion-dollar superstar?
Look like we may actually have some legitimate movement in the direction of Caitlin Clark coming back, and I will sort of look at the schedule with you guys and try to determine what game I think she might actually show back up in.
That's why teams on the playoff bubble are watching this with terror in their eyes. The Los Angeles Sparks and the new Golden State Valkyries thought they had a clear path to the postseason. They've been circling the struggling Fever like sharks, ready to pick them apart. But the thought of a healthy, motivated Caitlin Clark returning for the final stretch of the season completely upends their plans. Her return doesn't just make the Fever better, it threatens to knock another team out of the race entirely.
Against the Sparks, and this is a big game because the Sparks are right there with us on the playoff race, and they hold tiebreakers. By the way, so do the Valkyrie. All right, we do have one win. I believe it's one win over the Mercury. And then we've got a Sky team that we should beat, a Mystics team that we should beat, but you can't, I mean, who knows? I think they beat us in the last game. And then we close out the regular season with the Lynx. We're not making the playoffs without Caitlin Clark. There. Yeah, I said it. We're not making the playoffs without Caitlin Clark. I don't think.
Perhaps no one has felt Clark's absence more than Aaliyah Boston. After winning Rookie of the Year, Boston was supposed to form a dominant duo with Clark. Instead, without Clark's gravity pulling defenders away from the paint, Boston has looked lost. She's been swarmed on every possession, her efficiency has dropped, and her confidence looks shaken. Her stalled progress is a brutal reminder that Clark doesn't just score points, she elevates every single player around her.
All right? And it's these two games that are the big pivot games. Sparks, Valkyries. That game right there, that Friday night game, I have a feeling that she might actually return for that game.
And what about the rivals? For weeks, players like Angel Reese have been taking subtle shots and enjoying the spotlight without Clark in it. They built their brand this season on a manufactured rivalry, but with Clark sidelined, the trash talk felt hollow. Now with rumors of her return swirling, a sudden silence has fallen over her most vocal critics. They know that if she comes back and dominates, all their cheap shots will make them look foolish.
Not necessarily probably team practices, but being able to put together, threes, fours, and different things that we can go against and match up with.
Great follow-up question by Tony East there, because that's been a question that people have wondered, is there even enough practice time? And a nice distinction drawn by Stephanie White there, which is important, which means she needs to see Caitlin Clark in practice, but it doesn't have to necessarily be official team practice, meaning they will be able to replicate what a practice looks like.
The officials are in an even worse position. The refereeing this season has been a DMN disaster, especially when it comes to protecting Clark from overly physical and often dirty plays. They've enjoyed a brief break from the intense scrutiny, but the second she steps back on the court, every single call and non-call will be analyzed in slow motion by millions of people. Her return isn't just a challenge for opposing teams, it's a nightmare for the league's officiating crews.
They're not going to sit there with Caitlin Clark healthy and ramping up and just leave her there when they're in the playoffs if she's ready to go. They're going to figure that out on the fly, is how you take those comments. You also take them to mean that Caitlin Clark is back participating with the team, which we got a hint of on Sunday. They've been behind closed doors since then. You start to look at the schedule. I mean, I think at any point, it's getting more and more realistic. The more the Fever win without her, the more time is bought. Like, the ideal date may be that Chicago game on September 5th, and since it's at home and there's space between. But you can't totally rule out the road trip either, which still has the 29th, the 31st, and the 2nd.
Through all of this, you have to wonder what's going on inside Clark's own mind. She's a relentless competitor, wired to be on the floor leading her team. Watching from the sidelines as the Fever cough up leads and lose winnable games has been visibly agonizing for her. She isn't built to rest and recover patiently. Her entire career has been defined by her pushing through adversity, and you can bet she is privately lobbying the coaches and medical staff to let her back on the court.
Caitlin Clark is clearly ramping up, not being shut down. Now, there can always be a setback, but it seems like things are trending certainly in a positive direction. So for all the doom and gloom, and of course, I'm not sitting here telling you the Fever are winning the championship or anything, but it feels like their fight is being rewarded. That team is playing hard. They're playing well. People are coming in and playing well on the fly, and Caitlin Clark has healed up.
Here's a dirty little secret the league won't admit. Opposing teams might be publicly dreading her return, but their owners are privately praying for it. They call it the Caitlin Clark tax. When Clark comes to town, arenas sell out, merchandise flies off the shelves, and local TV ratings spike. Teams that were losing money are suddenly profitable for a night. Her absence hasn't just hurt the Fever, it's hurt the bottom line of every single franchise in the WNBA.
I know a lot of you are like, why come back? Why come back? Well, look, if she's back and she can get in the flow and she does need to come back, I think with several games to go to get back and try to find her first rhythm for the year, really and truly, getting a good, then yeah, they become very dangerous with a big three. And look, I'm using that term loosely because Aaliyah Boston has not been great lately. Big 2.5.
For the Indiana Fever, the final stretch of the season has now transformed into a desperate last stand. Before the practice video, their playoff hopes were on life support, fading fast. Now, there's a glimmer of hope. Her potential return turns every remaining game into a must-see event, a do-or-die mission to claw their way back into the postseason picture. The entire franchise's fate rests on the health of one player's groin muscle.
She's healthy. It's just getting her back to where she needs to be from a basketball standpoint. But all in all, even Chloe Bibby, Stephanie White said would be hopefully back at practice by the end of the week. All things considered, it's got to be the best day in Feverland in a long time.
The panic is most palpable out west. The Sparks and the Valkyries have been in a dogfight for the final playoff spots, and they were counting on the Fever to continue their downward spiral. Now, they have to prepare for the possibility of facing a re-energized Indiana team led by a superstar with a chip on her shoulder. A returning Clark is the ultimate wildcard, the one player who can single-handedly wreck their season. This whole situation has exposed Kathy Engelbert's impossible high-wire act. In public, she has to talk about player safety and the long-term health of her stars. But in private, she's staring at spreadsheets and TV ratings, and she knows the truth. The WNBA's newfound mainstream success is almost entirely tied to Caitlin Clark. The league cannot afford for its main attraction to be watching the playoffs from her couch. Imagine the pressure on the Indiana Fever's medical staff. They are caught in a brutal crossfire. On one side, they have a professional obligation to protect Clark from a devastating re-injury. On the other, they have the player herself pushing to play, a desperate fan base begging for her return, and a league office that wants its star back in the spotlight. Their final decision will have massive consequences, no matter what they choose. The unspoken truth of the WNBA has been laid bare for all to see. For years, the league fought for relevance. Now its survival in the national consciousness depends almost entirely on one 22-year-old rookie. When she plays, the WNBA is front-page news on ESPN. When she doesn't, it risks slipping back into being a niche sport. The entire enterprise is riding on her shoulders. This is why the fan base is on the absolute brink. Fever fans have been through hell watching their team look incompetent and lost. The leaked practice footage was like a shot of pure adrenaline. They've flooded social media, creating a groundswell of demand for her return. That optimism has created its own form of pressure, making it even harder for the team to justify keeping her on the bench if she's even close to being ready. If she does come back and plays like her old self, it will rewrite the entire narrative of the season. Every critic who called her overrated, every rival who took a cheap shot, every analyst who wrote off the Fever, they would all be silenced. It would become a legendary comeback story, proving that even at less than 100%, she is still the most impactful player in the entire league. Ultimately, this whole saga boils down to one final unsettling question. Is this frantic push to get Caitlin Clark back on the court really about the spirit of competition and a desire to see a generational talent shine, or is it a cold, calculated business decision to protect a product? Is the WNBA trying to save its star, or is it simply trying to save its investment? Let us know what you think down in the comments below.